flat Earth doesn't cure you. Like, if you were a globe earther and now you're a flat earther and you have problems with your character, you still have problems with your character. Like, waking up one day and saying the Earth is flat didn't make you have good character all of a sudden. The human journey still exists.
Being a
But
flat
leans
earther does not make you a good person. It just
leans more to
doesn't.
the fact that it's not going to be like a utopia if everybody knows that the Earth is flat, which is what some of
Yeah.
these guys said the end game is. Oh well, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be like kumbaya? No, I don't think so. There'll be a whole
Yeah,
new
someone
set of
told me
problems.
someone told me if everyone was a flat earther, there'd be no war and no famine. Everyone would live in peace and everybody would live in abundance. And I'm like, dude, you're
Really?
smoking some straight up facts. They also told me that nobody would fight anymore. And I said, well, how will we do that? What about people that are born that have violent tendencies or this or that? Oh, well, we'll have to deal with them. Well, what do you mean deal with them? Well, yeah, we'll have to get rid of them. Well, what do you mean get rid of them? And of course, at the end, they said, well, we'll have to kill them. So I said, oh, so your utopia requires random killing of people that don't fit your group's identity. Okay, I get it now. Yeah, we just have to kill everyone that doesn't agree with us. I'm like, oh, good job, bro. That's real peaceful. That's real.
That's like the Charlie Kirk follower mentality. They took Charlie Kirk out, and then they're like, "Oh well, let's start canceling all those guys. Let's see how they like it." I'm like, dude, isn't that what he was advocating against? And you guys are just
Yeah.
gonna fall right back into the same thing. He was basically,
Yeah.
if you want to carry his legacy, don't do the same thing they're doing. Do the opposite. Like,
Yeah. You know
That's
how I
the one thing
defeated
that
that
pissed me off
guy's
from
logic with his kumbaya utopia? It was so simple because he was like, well, everyone will have money, everyone will have food, everyone will have what they need. No one will be, jealous or envious of anyone. And so they won't have any motive to fight or go to war because it won't be like, oh, I don't have food, you have food. And then I said, well, okay. And I'm like, okay, so everyone will have a wife. Every man will have a wife. Every wife will have a husband. Yeah, they'll all have their own children. Sure. Okay. Okay, cool. So every man is going to have a wife, right? So there'll be no covetousness, right? Yeah, yeah, of course. Okay, what if your wife's prettier than my wife? And his whole worldview fell apart because we know for a fact that in a situation when you have all these humans together, that some guy is going to covet another man's wife, and that wife's going to be wooed by him, and you know, be we all know this. Like we're not deluded into thinking that it's circumstances that yeah, circumstances can make people do things worse than they otherwise would, but there's always disequitable circumstances. You can never make somebody's life identical to somebody else's life where they have no reason whatsoever to covet anything that they possess. That's impossible to remove. You can't equalize everyone. You can't equalize everyone's desires to even know that you can give everyone what they want. So it doesn't even make sense. Absolute lunacy.
you can't get rid of the problem of sin, man. No matter how hard you try.
Right. Yeah, you'd be like, well, we'll just make all women have D cups by force. And that will make all women's faces look the same by force. That way no man could think another man's wife is more attractive than his wife. And then if one woman's tall and one woman's short, we'll cut her legs off. And then we will put those legs on another girl and graft them in, and then they'll all be the same height. And vice versa for the men. They'll all have facial hair. Like, get real, dude. You could keep trying to manipulate reality into this perfection all you want, but we all know it's not possible.
That was the problem with the Matrix, the first iteration. They tried to make it a utopia that people didn't.
Because it's like at the end of the day, you're presented with circumstances and you have to make moral decisions in those circumstances, right? And you're either going to do the right thing or not do the right thing. And everybody's capable of not doing the right thing. And not only are they capable of not doing the right thing, oftentimes they don't. In fact, confidently, we all know for a fact that confidently we can say about everybody we meet that they not only have they done wrong things in their life, that they did wrong things in their life, eyes wide open, knowing what they did was wrong, and they did it anyway. We all know that about every single person in this room, and about every single person we've ever met, and about every single person on the face of the earth. We all know that. And anybody who thinks that's not true is retarded, and we all know that. And anyone who says they never have done any of those things, we all know is a liar. That's just the facts. But if everyone knew the earth was flat, then all of a sudden that would magically disappear overnight. Oh, get real. Isn't that the same stupidity with the Globers' zealotry of thinking that the advancement and evolution of mankind is going to lead to a peaceful utopia in the future one day? And that salvation of mankind is in the cosmos, out there somewhere in the stars? And
Yeah,
isn't
they
that
they
just a reverse saying the salvation of mankind isn't out in the stars, it's on the earth? The face of the earth is the salvation of mankind. Does that even make any sense?
yeah, theirs is in reverse. They actually have to colonize a new planet where only the best and the brightest and only the upstanding moral people are going to be to start a new civilization. So that way, when they start that new civilization, it'll be pure. You know, only the cream of the crop.
Hey, speaking of the guy who asked me about AI recently, so you know all this stuff about traveling to other worlds, right? You could actually create a society that believes people have already traveled to other worlds and are communicating back with us, especially with the way AI is going. You can literally pattern human behaviors and interactions, and basically have this whole crew of virtual people that allegedly exist on another world communicating with us, and they'll like send us messages about their hopes and dreams and about the things they need, and how they witness this and that, and people will believe it, dude. They'll be watching it on a TV screen, and they'll literally think that these people are on another world, 2 or 3 light years away or something. Hey, Yoder, you want to know something funny? Huey was being called out for the Black Swan argument on Nathan's show earlier. They were critiquing the Black Swan, saying that all the extra stuff isn't needed. All you need is the distance to the oil rigs.
Holy smokes!
But I'm only saying that not to critique that statement, but to critique that, within a couple of weeks ago, there was a list put out of arguments that are bad or badly employed or that need to be critiqued or thought about or talked about. And man, some people got so butthurt about it.
Yeah, we were talking about him in here, man, in the morning time. It was quite fun, man. We had it was a pretty stacked panel. And then it wasn't even I think the list we stopped at like 30 something when we did it. I think Yoder expanded it. It's like in the 40s now, probably more than that. I don't know where he's at with it.
I thought of a new one just the other day, and I was like, "Oh, this would be a good one," but now I'm having a hard time remembering it. Let me try to remember what was going on yesterday. Maybe it'll jog my memory.
Yeah, he's listening. He's probably busy at work. Yoder, can you type in what number you're at right now? You're like in the high 40s, right? Like 48 or 49 or something. Yeah, 48. And that's not to say that that can be added to. It's just where he's at with it. We're, I mean, I think we were talking about it too. Um, if it's a black swan, it means it's an anomaly, right? That's the anomaly, the black swan. But why does it have to be a black swan though? Because that would assume that we're taking a position that if someone is proposing that the Earth is a globe, but not experiencing it, like the common experience. But if the common experience is such that the Earth is flat, then wouldn't the black swan be that the anomaly would be the Earth is a globe? That's what we're talking about. I don't know what I mean. What do you think about it? Because that's where that's what I could see that. You'd have to actually take on the world perspective that the Earth is a globe, and then say, well, the black swan would be that the Earth is flat, and then you see it. You went to Santa Barbara and you saw that extending distance to the horizon, which far exceeds the predictable curvature uh, amount. That means that now that is the anomaly. But that wouldn't that be just a common experience that everyone would have anywhere they go? Like there's no curvature being tested. I mean, or at least amount of curvature that's taken at any distance that would be given the geometry of the Earth, its characteristic. So it's not per se a black swan. I don't know.
It's like everyone thought that all swans were white because they saw freaking white swans everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? In relation to the horizon, no one's ever seen a white swan in regards to that, right? So what's the whole thing's just ridiculous. It's all set up around a scripted, ridiculous argument about there not being any refraction, screaming at people and muting them. It's all set up around that. A cherry-picked, blurry observation that's heavily distorted on purpose. So people will say the word refraction, and then someone can say, "Oh, it's not refraction. You're an idiot." And that's the whole.
Well, you can concede.
thing that.
You could concede refraction. You could concede that the reason why things look different at different times is because of refraction, but then that gives up the geometry because now you only have a myriad of observations that are basically seen through the lens of optical phenomenon. And so your underlying geometry has to be proven separately, right? So the image itself isn't proof of the geometry.
Well, in all cases too, the bottom up obstruction would have to be observed at distances that would be equal to the person observing it, like wherever they did observe it. So if they said I seen a bottom up obstruction and I saw the ship, it was at like 15 miles or whatever, then that would be the standard, wouldn't it? Like you couldn't say that that specific optical phenomena, seeing the ship disappear from the bottom up, you'd have to be able to see that, in the case of like testing it. So if you don't see that, like some people I've heard that they don't see the bottom up obstruction, it just goes to the vanishing point. So then what do you? It doesn't make it true. Then bottom up obstruction, even just saying that is not true to be in all cases. There's so many things wrong with that. And what's even worse, if you give them a way they can see that it's not just a specific type of optical phenomena, but like also the waves that could be, causing that obstruction. That blows our minds. It's not just Earth curve. The undulation of that ship and that GIF that DJ posted one time, it demonstrates that at a fair distance away, the observer can see that I think it was a Coast Guard ship. I don't know what ship it was. I think it was a Coast Guard ship. As it was like moving through the water, it was undulating. You could see it like where the waves were actually distorting the bottom of that ship. Then it would pop up above the wave, and you could see most of it again. Oh yeah, thanks for that, Yoder. Yoder posted the arguments in the text. Can't try to remember. Was Flat Earth the one that actually was somebody from Flat Earth saying the 69 mile per 1 degree? Welcome to the channel, Nerb Hey. Oh, really? Oh, wow. I didn't know it was that well accepted. So this place is the only place that would raise an objection to that, what it seems. I don't know why. I just can't find the reasoning behind why people are so hung up on that map. I don't know why. Like that one, like that specific map. Well, yeah, I mean, I can see why they. Doesn't that just go back to what AI was saying earlier? How do you know? Have you been 90 degrees underneath Polaris? Like that would be the next thing. Who's verified that?
Oh, that's why I told you earlier, AV, that that guy that we were talking about has the flat Earth map. He just doesn't know it yet because he made a whole bunch of claims about Polaris is in the center, right? All the stars rotate east to west around Polaris, and that there's ground positions of those stars. So all you got to do is just get a ground position above a known territory, and then you have a plot point using your 69 miles per degree, which you claimed were linear distances from the center, which is the ground position of Polaris, right? Which you've never validated, but that's neither here nor there. So you put a dot in the center of a paper, right? That's Polaris. Then you put a dot for the ground position of the star. Then you get the angle to Polaris to get the distance. And then wherever you are, right? Let's say you're in New York City, for example. You now know where New York City is to Polaris. And then you can then see, through a period of time where the star moves to another ground position, you get that ground position. You could plot all these points out, right? So I told that guy, well, if you're making these claims, just draw that out, plot the points, and draw it on a piece of paper and see what you get.
Yeah, you get
You're going to get
spokes up.
something that looks, yeah, you're going to get something that looks almost identical to an azimuthal equidistant projection, right?
Yep. You'd have to. I mean, you get spokes on a bicycle wheel, But so now it's just like we're demanding measurements from the Glober, and then the Glober doesn't have to demand measurements from us now when we're making this claim. Like it's just, I don't know. It's too much to actually take on and say that we can't be bothered by figuring out the measurements after, the Glober says, okay, well, you wanted me to give you the measurements of the globe, but you're making a 69 per 1 degree rule, and have you measured that? Like, they could say demand the same. Well, what's going to happen then at that point? We're just going to shout them down into oblivion? Like, Yeah, he's Yoda brings up a lot of good points. He said you get a globe actually doing that.
No. Get a globe. You get something, but it won't be a globe. You'd have to make another step to put that into a globe. You may get a confusing bunch of weird. Man, there's no 360, Holmes. Only on one axis. So let's say that the star, you're going to have a flat piece of paper. You're going to put a dot in the center, right? And then you're going to draw out your coordinates, right? Based on latitude and longitude, which is just time and distance or angles. And so all you can really draw out is a bunch of dots that are in a spider web like grid, for lack of a better term. Like a circular, circles expanding out, right? Because these are quote unquote circles of equal altitude around Polaris, right? So you're going to end up with what looks like the classic spider web azimuthal equidistant coordinate system. And then you can only plot your points on that. So you're going to get something that's flat with a whole bunch of points plotted on it, and those are going to have consequences. If you're making the claim that these are direct, triangles on the surface of the Earth, and the point that you're at is getting the ground position of the star from your point from where you're at, and so you can start plotting these points out. Now, maybe the case after you plot all these points out, you're like, wait a minute, it doesn't make sense about the relationships of the distances between all these cities unless I curve it or something, because I have to decide, did I make a false claim about the relationship of the geometry of the sky to the ground, or did I do it the other way around? And then you're going to have to decide to abandon your claims about the direct geometrical relationship between the sky and the ground, which is one thing that flat earthers did in the past. They said the sky doesn't have a direct geometrical correlation to the ground. And then, after a while, they started adopting again, but now that I'm a flat earther, I can start doing a direct, mapping of the ground from the sky. Based on my claim of elevation angles to Polaris and everything goes east to west and this, that, and the other, but you never actually plotted those points on any map. You can't even, when asked, you can't even do it. But yet you come in here and try to lecture us that we're just believing our friends who live in Australia when they say, this is what I saw when I looked south. Okay, that's what you saw. But apparently those guys that live in Australia are liars, because other people say everything's, measured in elevation angles to Polaris, and it's been driven into their minds and they can't even think for themselves. So yeah, maybe the case that when they get to that junction and they see that what they basically created was a relevant relationship between the ground and the sky, that when they look at it, they're like, well, the easiest way to solve this would be just to assume the Earth is a globe. Or because otherwise I have to abandon all my claims I've been making about the relationship between the sky and the ground. When I thought it was that part of the whole flat Earth, let's just call it a mantra for lack of a better term, that a lot of them have been saying, right, is you can't determine the ground from the sky. So you're told you can't determine the ground from the sky, and then you're bait and switched and saying, but here's a sky determination. that tells you what the ground is.
Right,
So
or Eratosthenes
you could
baked in
argue,
assumptions.
yeah,
Yeah, using elevation
you could
angles as a
almost,
method.
yeah, you could almost argue that it's a cyclical, like it's a cycle, right? And they were brought along for the cycle to be convinced that whether they realize it or not, they're basically being retrained to believe that how you determine what the ground is by appealing to the sky. And then it makes it very easy to just go right back into the way of thinking that you had before.
Hey, AI, let me ask you a question, man. Did you bring this up to anybody about it? Like the other chats that you go to?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like taken in and thought of or critiqued or anything. Like they just dismissed it or what?
Well, I mean, there was a long time when they would actually respect what I had to say, but then once it became a personal issue between me and some of their members, who, by the way, were doing direct bad things to me, and I was just defending myself essentially. That's when they started not caring so much, and basically that they allowed those guys to trick them into demonizing me. So rather than listen to the merits of what I had to say, that just be like, well, I could just dismiss what you say because you're a liar, you're a shill, you got bad intentions, yada yada yada. And it's like, dude, I'm just asking you, draw that out for me. You made a bunch of claims about the geometry of the Earth relative to the sky. Can you draw that out for me? That's it. And to be fair, some of the Globers were critiquing some of these guys, saying, "Hey, can you just do this steps for me? Like you're saying that I can do this with a flat Earth. Can you just do the whole process so I could see it happen?" And they're like, "No, I'm not going to do it for you."
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, man.
It's like the equator, right? I mean, the equator, according to some people, is where the sun passes over the Earth, where it's like equal time and equal night or something like that. And then one of the other explanations is the equator is quote unquote 0 degrees declination of Polaris in your field of view. So basically, whenever you're going away from Polaris and then all of a sudden you can't see it, that's the equator. Well, if that's true and that is the quote unquote equator, and you're claiming a degree relationship of the declination of Polaris as a straight line distance, which would be the base leg of the triangle, right? The angle from you to Polaris would be the hypotenuse, right? Then you're claiming a literal distance. You're claiming a circle that has a specific circumference, right? And the distance to that, if you claim it's linear versus what the Globers would claim, those are two different distances, right? That has consequences. And then if you're claiming that all the other stars are, have ground positions and they could be plotted within or without this circle as essentially either a concentric circle within those circles or maybe a little bit elliptical or maybe off a little bit here or there, but either way, they've got real distances because you're claiming the base leg of the triangle is a real distance to the ground position and you're claiming it's a linear distance. Well, you could plot that out on a chart. I've yet to see one of these charts. And it's not as simple as somebody who doesn't really know the argument about that coming in here and not being educated or not understanding it and being asked for that. No, these are people who supposedly have been under the tutelage for years of people claiming to be experts. and celestial navigation and experts in how to measure the Earth with elevation angles and all this and that. But then when they come in here and we ask them for something simple as, oh, well, can you just draw that out for me? Can't be done. Oh, well, can you tell me how you get these things in the South? Can't be done. So it's a head scratcher, isn't it? Now you could argue until you're blue in the face that elevation angles proves the Earth is flat, but when any of those questions are asked, you can't answer them based on this whole synergized celestial navigation argument. And then the Globers are listening. What do you think the Globers hear? They hear, well, the reason why none of these flat earthers are doing what you're asking them to do, it's not because they're just mad at you and there's a little, tete-a-tete between your personality and their personality. No, it's because if they actually did it, it would result in a globe, and me being a glober already, accepts the Earth being a globe. So I'm just laughing at these stupid flat earthers because it's the answer so obvious, solves all the problems of why they can't reconcile these distances, right? So the glober goes away completely unconvinced. The glober actually never even took a pause in their worldview because everything that was argued about to them was silly. But rest assured, if you just repeat elevation angles has a specific definition, therefore the Earth is flat, you think you've won. Well, I mean, maybe you've won something, but it depends on what you're trying to win. Okay, real distances and straight line baselines and angles, they have real consequences, right? Like if you're building a building and you're trying to lay walls out on a floor, right? That's gonna be either it's going to be plumb level square, or your distances are going to be wrong, and you're going to end up with a different shape. So if somebody then asks you, well, can you draw that out for me, or can you build that out for me, and you can't do either, and your entire argument exists within rhetoric, but you can't actually model it or demonstrate it, then that person may not be convinced. And it's not unfair for them to ask you to do either of those two things, especially if you're claiming to have specific knowledge and expertise. And to go into other people's forums and spout off at the mouth like you know what you're talking about, and then when pressed with a simple question that you should already have the answer for, to be able to then validate that you have any expertise in what you're talking about, and then you can't produce it. I mean, that's pretty embarrassing. Hey, Miggy, you're fired. No, I'm just kidding.
What up, homeboy? Damn, on my day off? Damn. What's up?
Man, yeah. So what? So like for example, if I told you to tell me what my position has always been about the stars' relationship to the Earth, would you be able to do that?
I mean, it would be the common answer that we all say in here. They help navigate, but they're not any relation to the surface condition. I mean, I don't know. Did you say something according to like it having a relationship to the surface condition? Which would be something I haven't heard, but I've never heard you speak of it like that.
Well, my position was always that once I realized it, that basically the stars are they're just something we see in our field of view from our observer's location, and their true place relative to the Earth and relative to different observation points is actually unknown and can't possibly be validated because no one's ever been to the star field to validate their actual locations. So you just have all these different observer-based model interpretations, which you can synergize to use for certain practical benefits, but there's no real true knowledge about the physical locations of the stars relative to the Earth.
Yeah, I mean
Because no one's ever been out to the stars.
that was Yoda's position. Try to get a 90 degree to any star. Has anybody ever done that?
Not on the surface of a ball.
Oh, what's up, Radwin?
I mean, I would challenge anybody to get 90 degrees on any surface. Yeah, go out in your backyard and make a level piece of land and then get something 90 degrees from it. That's actually truly vertical. I mean, maybe you could say drop a plumb line, but then you wouldn't even have to worry about the ground at all, would you? You could just go out in your backyard and drop a plumb line and then just say there, now I've got 90 degrees. So why even bother leveling the surface? But like if you went out back in your backyard and poured a slab of cement, right? Even that cement isn't going to be perfectly level. Even if you think, well, it's kind of like a liquidy substance, and so it's going to, just self level. Not necessarily, because cement actually has some viscosity to it, and then you got to screed the top, and so you may be off a little bit. And so then if you put some wood on top of that cement, right, you got to fasten it to it. That wood isn't going to be perfectly straight. Then you're going to put a wall up, and you're going to use your level, right? Maybe you're going to use the 3-4-5 rule from your floor, but you ain't going to get that perfect either. So you may be at 89.5 degrees or 89.75 degrees off of true vertical. If you're going to tell me that you're going to go out there with a handheld bubble level, a plumb bob, and wood, and actually construct something that's perfectly 90 degrees oriented vertically, you're smoking some crack. But that doesn't mean that your house is going to fall down. Right, your walls your building doesn't have to be idealistically perfectly plumb level square for it to function, right? It just has to be within the tolerances for the purpose that you're utilizing it for. And in most houses, bubble levels is all you need. Good enough.
Some people might hear you right now and mistake you for saying that gives the glober the excuse that over a distance you could have the occurrence where there is that little bit of tolerance to have the globe exist. Because if you're saying, well, I measured a level straight horizontal surface and I connected it to another level straight horizontal surface, as in the case of surveying and that, when they transfer the line, that they're actually doing it over a surface of a globe, according to what you're saying. So they might mistake
Well,
They might mistake what you're saying for that.
well, you got to think about it like this. So, what's the most accurate leveling device that we possess? Probably water, right? And I'm just going to use numbers that somebody else gave me. This is just for sake of argument, okay? So what they told me is that a water level, and the water level being a not a bubble level, but a water level, and the water level is where you actually use water over a long distance. So you might take it in a tube, right? And you have one end of the tube here, and you could have like 200 feet of tube on the other end, and then you fill it with water, and the water will rise up in the tube to the same level. And so you could then take a pencil and mark off level where that water is, and go to the other side and mark off level, and now you got a level between that 200 feet, right? Maybe you had 3 points on it, so you could do the middle too, right? So supposedly in that scenario, the confirmed accuracy can only be within a 50 millionth of an inch. That's what I was told. So even in spans, water level to be able to measure is only accurate within a 50 millionth of an inch. So according to that logic, if the Earth was a globe with a sufficient radius to where the entire known territory of the Earth that we have ever had available to us was a 50 millionth of an inch of curvature over that entire span, and then you extrapolate the Earth out to be this globe of gigantic proportions, right? And by gigantic, I mean, I haven't done the math on it, but you'd be talking about millions and millions of miles of radius, I'd imagine. Then yeah, the accuracy that we can employ would still leave the logical option that it is curved at that rate of curvature, because we don't have anything more accurate. Now, if somebody said, no, you're wrong, that can't possibly be true, guess what? I'm sorry to say, but they'd be wrong. Unless they have a more accurate methodology of measurement than that, which they don't.
Yeah, that's great, but the issue isn't that. It's more of what's on the table right now, and that's the size of what the claimed radius is. So if the tolerance that you just described is still within bounds of being able to measure specific radius, like that they say that the Earth is, then that's different than it exceeding that and not being able to measure it, like if it was a bigger ball. You get what I mean? So I just kind of wanted like maybe there to be where you said like, yeah, if it was outside of that range, there's no way you could detect if you're on a giant ball or not. But that's not what they're saying. They're saying it's within the,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. And then what happens on the other part of the flat earth are arguing against that, they will think that if you say something like that, that you then think that this giant ball that you're postulating for a hypothetical means that you could then walk forward and eventually you'd be standing sideways to how you were standing before, because you'd be on the quote unquote side of the ball. But why would you assume that? You would only assume that if you're carrying over certain trappings from the previous worldview that you were critiquing. So for example, plenty of flat earthers will say that up is up and down is down, right? And that a down is not inwards to a giant ball. Well, you could actually live on a giant ball and up be up and down be down, unless you're linking the direction of down to the ball's surface, right, as a radial from the center. So you're mixing your worldviews there, and you're actually not doing an adequate critique of different positions. You're only limiting yourself to two options, and the first option is entirely something you've been told, and you're still living within that view and trying to make it work on this other view where it doesn't necessarily have to exist. There were some people, dude, that couldn't even fathom this. Like, so if you take a piece of paper, right, and you draw a circle on a graph paper, make the origin of coordinates right at the intersection, right? Draw a circle so you have the x and y axis, right? We all can imagine, we've all seen graph paper before, right? So if you make the y axis up and down, right? Then if you're going off on the side of the ball, you'd fall off. And you hear people say all the time, well, if the earth was a ball, you'd fall off, right? So they understand the principle, but then when it comes to thinking about it, they don't apply it. And so if you tell them, hey, even flat water on the surface doesn't tell you the overall shape of the earth at all, right? It just tells you the surface that's facing up is flat. Right? That's all it can tell you. It doesn't inform you about the extent of the boundary, right? It doesn't tell you where the quote unquote edge is or if there even is an edge. It doesn't tell you what's underneath the earth. It doesn't tell you that if you go far enough away from where you are now, eventually you reach a part where the earth just keeps declining in elevation for an undefined period. It doesn't tell you any of that information. And so if you're saying from everywhere we know of is flat because it's covered in water, right? And then now I can start making claims about places I've never been. That's where you start putting your foot in your mouth. Some people think that if you just keep walking, you just are going to always have more land to keep walking on, right? That's some people's interpretation of what flat Earth means. And you're just going to keep walking and walking and walking, and the land will just never stop. Maybe you could walk 1,000 years and there'd still be more land, and you'd have no way of knowing if it just keeps going for another 10,000 years. Now that's different because notice how I say you could keep, you have no way of knowing, but there's people out there that say, oh, I know the boundary conditions of the earth. I know the extent of the earth. Well, how do you know that? Just like God said to Job, did you stretch a line across the earth to tell me the breadth thereof? Well, have you? I'm being serious here. All the flat earthers, listen to me. Have you stretched the line across the earth to tell me the breadth thereof? Have you gone to the ground position of Polaris to tell me where it is thereof? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? There'd be a lot of flat earthers making a lot of claims that they can't possibly substantiate, while at the same time criticizing other people for being critical of arguments. It literally makes no sense.
AI, are you saying that Earth could be a bigger ball?
Well, logically, if everywhere we know is flat within an accuracy of a 50 millionth of an inch, right, and you can't possibly know the full extent of it, then yes, logically, you could be living on a gigantic, enormous, astronomically kabungus, big chungus, fat mungus ball. Yes, that's just logic. And if I said anything otherwise, I'd be being dishonest.
Sorry.
And so anybody out there who, has an ire against me, like Neil from FED, who wants to go back and report to FED, oh, AI said you could live on a bigger ball. Well, if you say that's not true, go ahead and disprove anything I said logically. Go ahead. With any argument you could possibly think of. Because logically I'm airtight, and there's no instrumentation that exists. There's no instrumentation that exists that can disprove what I just said. So yes, let's just call it a Schrodinger's possibility.
Hey, AI, if I'm not mistaken, is that not a similar sentiment to what Flat Earth Dave had in his interview with Jesse Lee Peterson. Remember when he was grilling him? He's like, "Oh, are you sure without a shadow of a doubt? You know, there's flat," and he kept not answering that. It's like he wanted to reserve that similar type of possibility. It seems. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but it's according to the idea that he's postulating that the Earth is flat. So there's this whole like you can't. Okay,
True.
there's a double speak. If you're okay, I get it. Everybody gets AI's point, right? You understand why he's saying that, though, right? Logically, like I don't know if you're. Well, I kind of need to hear how you. Let's put it this way: 20 cups. All right, so you heard AI.
It was just like that. That's kind of what resonated with me. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you heard what he said, right? So what did you understand by what he said? Like, hey, is there any way you could tell the audience? I'd like to know.
Yeah. In a nutshell, what I got is based off of the precision of our available instruments, right? The accuracy of 15 millionth or 5 millionth of an inch or something like that. We could not tell if it was curving within that range because our instrumentation is not sufficient.
Outside of that range. Now within it you can. Yeah. Outside of it you can't. So if something was, greater than that, like it was a lot, the ball was bigger, you would be able to detect whether or not you're on a curved surface beyond those parameters.
Well,
now check this out, brother.
Waters, but we could be within a crater on a bigger ball, right? Where
that's fair, but before we lose the point, I just want to point out that other things that have been claimed to be direct measurements of the surface of the Earth to make the conclusion that it's flat, right? They may be sufficient, but they are not more accurate than a 50 millionth of an inch. Okay, celestial navigation is not more accurate than that. Okay, I hope we all understand that. Celestial navigation doesn't result in pinpoint accuracy. Okay, let's be clear. Do we all agree? Okay, as far as I know, I mean, you're talking in the celestial navigation, you get results that are like accurate within a mile or something, or maybe 300 feet, or who knows. Anyway, it's not in the sub inches. Okay, period. Lasers lasers over long distances aren't that accurate either. Now, are they sufficient to the task to be able to get information from? Yes, but not on a subscale. So yes, there is a quote unquote logical Hail Mary dreamland where a glober could say, maybe I live on this gigantic ball, right? But that still destroys their entire paradigm.
Yeah, but Overlord, it will go infinitely. It will go infinitely. There will be no possibility to just tell if someone just keep making that ball bigger and bigger.
Yeah,
and
exactly, brother. Exactly. So I got one question for you. I got one question for you. Have you laid a line across the Earth to tell me the breadth thereof, sir?
No. I didn't. But I
want to answer the question. I just answer the question. Just answer the question.
I didn't. I just answered.
All right, perfect. So now you can continue. Go ahead.
The point is, even if we assume that you get those instruments that can give you the measurement, that won't be sufficient because someone else will come and will make that much bigger. So you have to have accurate billions of an inch.
NECROS, you're breaking up, bro.
I'm sorry. I'll disconnect and reconnect.
Yeah, he's basically just saying you're going to get into an infinite regression.
Mic check.
Yeah, we get you. We heard you. I heard you, bro. You're saying if you do something within the millionth accuracy, someone's going to claim a billionth accuracy, and then someone's going to claim a trillionth accuracy, and so that they can always claim that they live on a cosmic entity. That's so before we live on this little ball inside this huge universe. Well, let's just make the ball the size of the universe.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's
Correct.
the truth. Hey, bro, maybe that's the truth. Maybe the Earth is the whole universe.
Yeah, I was actually saying that from the very beginning. But no, I think does anybody have? I'd like to do this as like a teachable moment for anybody listening. Does anybody have any objections to what he's saying, or you'd like to raise any comments, or perhaps you'd like to engage with what he's proposed? I don't know if there's anybody that's taking what you're saying right now because nobody's chiming in, and they're just like, "Is he saying the Earth is a globe?" Because I think that's like as the globe that we all know of or been told, not the one that you're talking about.
I literally agree 100% with what he said, and he
Okay.
understood my point. So, but for the moment, because we have that line just separating between the claimed globe that we already know about, so that have specific dimensions, and no curvature, meaning that it's flat. So curved on not curved, so meaning that it's flat. Dependent to the accuracy, that will be when we agree that it's not that claimed globe with those specific dimensions. We can try to find if we can see if it's curving just a little bit with that accuracy, like the example that he gave, millionth of an inch or billionth of an inch or gazillion of an inch. Who knows in the future?
But that's how level is defined, right? So when you're actually trying to get with like the water level, that's how you understand that. Yeah, you're going to get level off of that. So if anything is beyond that, how are you going to define that after that? What would that be?
I don't know.
There's no
The definition.
there's well, no, I'm saying that if there's something that exists that's outside of that parameter, then it would be named something else, But as far as we know, that's level, that's flat.
Yeah, for me, I work with the fact that level is horizontal. They are equal. Level is horizontal for me. So that's my baseline.
Right.
I don't think anyone's going to have any pushback here. Like, yeah, there could be a scale so big that, yeah, level is horizontal at this scale. I don't think anybody in here is claiming anything beyond the known world, like that being, the Antarctic Circle. So I don't think you'll get any pushback. And there already is a very small group of flat earthers called crater earthers who believe that we're on a crater on a bigger ball. But I think, yeah, there's already these ideas going around. I don't see this being a problem with anyone.
Well, check this out. Yeah, so if you were, let's say you did, just for sake of argument, live in a crater on a giant ball, and up is up and down is down, and level is level and horizontal is horizontal. So in other words, level is not a circle conforming to the equipotential surface of a ball. Level is just horizontal. So if you live in a crater on a giant ball, if you were able to get out of the crater and go towards the edge of the ball, you would be experiencing a descension. You wouldn't be rotating radially as you travel over the arc. You'd be experiencing the arc as a descending hill. And then once you got to the edge of it, you'd fall off, for lack of a better term. Right? And that would fit, what I just explained would fit all of the claims of the flat earthers over the past 10 years about the earth being flat, about level being level, all of those things, right? Except for the one claim that the overall form of the earth, right? But the known territory would still be flat, it'd still be level, it could still be measured with angles, all of those things could all still be true. So all of those things don't logically exclude the scenario I just described. Now, some people, whenever you argue that way, here's what they will rebut you with. If the earth was a giant ball, then you're saying water would stick to the side of the ball. Now, real quick, that is an actual rebuttal that I was given. not just given, but screamed over to be given. Now, does that make any sense? Is that a fair rebuttal?
I think
Or
it
do you need me
depends
to
how
No,
big.
it's not. It's a straw man.
Yeah, it's a straw man, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
But not
'cause
only is
what
it a
you're
straw
saying is
man,
at the top, right?
yeah,
There you
right.
go.
So it's not just a straw man, but it's an example of how people are so conditioned into a line of thinking that they can't even think outside the box. So their version of a globe must be the glober's version of a globe. And anybody who mentions a shape that is a globe, it must work that way that the globers claim it worked. It can't work any other way. So it just shows you just how deep the systemic indoctrination is into people's minds that it left them permanently scarred or permanently inoculated to being able to think for themselves.
Well said, bro.
That's wild. Isn't that wild?
This is a really healthy discussion because at the end of the day, it's all speculation beyond the known land masses, right?
That's
This is
correct.
Correct.
speculation.
And within the tolerance that we can measure level and flat. So anything
Let me give you
outside of
another
that
hypothetical. Oh, go
falls
ahead.
into speculation. No, I was just gonna say anything outside of that falls into that realm. But logically, it would still stand. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. So the argument that's being used that water, can't stick to a ball, is relevant in the scale that the Earth is being portrayed in the heliocentric model. But when you're talking 100,000, I don't know how many times bigger it would need to be, there would be a place where you could have water on a giant ball.
Yeah, well, see, the part of that whole that mental exercise is if you say water can't stick to a ball, therefore the Earth can't be a ball, that doesn't logically follow. Now, if anybody's not following what I just said, ask about it and I'll help you understand it. So I'll say it again. If you say water can't stick to the side of a giant ball, therefore the Earth can't be a ball, that doesn't follow. That's not a true statement. Anybody misunderstand it? Or everybody get it?
Hey, can I ask a question? Could water stick to a ball with a radius of 3959?
What? No. That's a positive. I'm doing it in the counter positive. So, for example, when people say water can't stick to a giant ball, they'll oftentimes do an example by pouring water over a basketball and they'll say, look, the water can't stick to this basketball. So, according to their previous reasoning, they would then have to conclude that the basketball is not a ball. Do you see the problem? Anybody not get it?
I think what needs to be highlighted is the physics that are working on the Earth that we're on right now. So if they're saying this thing is like something where physics is being used, then what if the thing that we're on is something that physics is described in a different way? You know what I mean? Like that's because you're on the thing that physics is being
Yes,
utilized.
exactly.
You know what I mean? So you're trying to use a demonstration of a ball that you can see, like a basketball, pouring water on it, and then saying that the Earth is exactly like that, but it doesn't follow because it's not analogous, because it's not like that thing that you're holding in your hand. It'd be an entirely different entity.
Right. So the correct logic form would be water can't stick to the sides of a giant ball. Therefore, the Earth can't be a giant ball with water sticking to the sides of it. Not that it can't be a ball. The can't be a ball wouldn't follow from the previous statement, but it would follow that it can't be a ball with water stuck to it. but there's a little bait and switch in there that a lot of people don't even realize that they're bait and switching themselves. They're not trying to bait and switch the person they're talking to. They're doing it to themselves and they don't even realize it. Why are they doing it to themselves? Because they've been so indoctrinated in a way of thinking from the past and they're still not on the other end of the road yet. So, for
I think
example,
some
if you
people.
deny a perfectly logical option that you don't have any explicit counterexamples against as being a possible option, you're doing yourself a disservice logically. You're actually stifling your own thought processes because you're railroading yourself from previous artifacts from the way you used to think when you were a glober and from the way other flat earthers are encouraging you to think in the present moment, right? So you're still being railroaded, right? You got to look down and see the railroad track on your left and on your right and realize how many of the left railroad track is from the globe artifacts and how many of the railroad tracks is from flat earthers who are still stuck in a paradigm of thinking that isn't actually being honest with itself.
AI, aren't you opening the door to gravity on a bigger ball? Somebody would be
I could care
upside down
less.
somewhere. Yeah, but somebody would be upside down somewhere in some part of the
Why?
universe. Well, a ball is spherical, right?
So
So somewhere in existence, if it was hypothetically a bigger ball,
no, doesn't follow.
why? Why not?
You missed a step because you missed a step.
Okay.
Okay. If I take a ball in my hand right now and I put something on the bottom of it,
Sorry for you.
actually, I'll do it. So I got a. It's not a ball; it's a cylinder, but it'll work for now for this example. So I'm holding a cylinder in my hand. It's a soup can. I turned it perpendicular, so now the curve is facing down. And I'm going to take this nut driver, and I'm putting it on the bottom. So now I have a curved surface. The bottom of the curved surface, I put a nut driver to it, and I let go, and it went down. So something being a curved surface has nothing to do with the direction of down at all.
So I am struggling to understand. So are we talking about? So the argument is a body of water can't stick to a ball, right? But in the scale that you're talking, it's no longer a body of water. It would be something like water tension, and your water tension could stick to all parts of the ball. Right?
Water tension, dude. Water tension can't even stick to the side of a soup can. So how in the world could it stick to something bigger? The amount of water on the side of a can, it's only going to have droplets on it. As soon as you add more water to it, it runs off. So how would having a bigger ball mean that water tension would mean water would be sticking to the sides? That doesn't follow either.
You need air pressure for that water to do that anyway.
Yeah, I understand how Roots is thinking about that. So Roots, it's not about the scale. It's not like you are thinking about a droplet of water sticking to a pool ball, for example. No, that the surface tension, I agree with you. But in that scale, because you can, no matter how big is the ball, you can't make those droplets like a quarter of a cup, the third of a cup of water. And you can't do that. Even if you make that ball with a rough surface, no, you can't make the droplet bigger. Little bit bigger, but the surface tension will break. So it's not about the scale. So if you scale that ball, you can stick an ocean. You can, if you scale that ball to 1 billion times bigger, and you can stick the ocean to the side of that ball, and you call it a droplet sticking because of the surface tension. No, it's not because of the scale. About the scale, it's about the molecules of water and how they work and how they create that layer on the surface of water that we call surface tension.
All right, I understand that, but how would up and down work on a bigger ball?
There is no up and down on a ball in reality, like Overlord exactly said. The up and down are in reference to horizontal, and in a ball you can have in, out, or away from the surface of the ball, close to the surface of the ball, on the surface of the ball. But there is no up and down in reality.
Are you confused, Roots?
Right, there's also
Am I the only one?
yeah.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for somebody. I think AI should start dropping some bombs here. I mean, he's gonna lay them. And then I can come in here. I was just waiting for him to reach a crescendo that he feels like he wants to move in.
Dude, I'm happy for some people to be confused right now and some people to get it. That's fine. The fact that they're scratching their heads is sufficient. Because that's what they should be doing, rather than making bold claims about the nature of reality beyond the scope of what they're available to access. Right? For example, uniformitarianism, right? The physics locally are the physics everywhere. That's part of the Glober's problem, right? They're making all these claims about things trillions and trillions and trillions of miles away that they have no direct access to, assuming that everything that works here also works there. So real quick, like let's say in our previous hypothetical with the crater Earth, and then you're imagining water sticking to the right hand side of it, right, like on a piece of graph paper. Well, that's not necessarily true, nor is it necessarily false. Nor do you have to have gravity in any kind of traditional conception that Globers would believe in. So, for example, you could just, when you go to the side of the Earth, if it exists, the creator of the realm could just have a completely different set of physics there, for all you know. How would you know? The answer is you wouldn't. This is the point I want you guys to get through your heads. The answer is you don't fucking know. Do you get it yet?
Dun dun dun. That's it. I was waiting for you, dude. I was waiting for you to say that, man. But so you understand, Roots? The problem is when you're trying to upscale to a level that you can't possibly understand what it would be, you can't then therefore make a claim as to that's how it would be. You get it? Because hold on, Nicholas. It far exceeds the amount of knowledge that we could comprehend within the realm that we are in right now. Does anybody get that, or is it just?
If someone remembers my discussions, when I talk about the surface and the property of the surface, I always explain and explicitly say that it's about the known surface to a human race, the known surface to us. And I'm not talking about what is not explored. If there is something to explore or there is none, I don't know about that shit. So I'm talking about this surface that we know, we human, it is flat. The oceans, the water,
right,
the surface of water on the known Earth to us, the known Earth that we can go to we can verify that we already measured and explored and navigated through. That's flat. And I agree with you 100%, Overlord. It can be whatever it is. And be a concave, it can be non-reality, the end of the reality. Reality is this known Earth. Away from that, it's the end of reality.
Yeah, bro. Exactly, brother. So let me posit this for you guys of thought processes. There's a predisposition, especially on the Glober side, and especially on the secular, materialist, atheist, evolutionist side, to put God in a box that he must operate within the laws of the universe, right? So there's certain things that occur within the universe that even God can't undo, like gravity or like this or that or the other. But remember, if God is truly the creator, then he transcends all of that, right? And the same token, on the flat earth side, people are making claims about the nature of reality and the way it functions that also puts God in a box to where his limitations are strictured to the creation. In other words, the creation is imposing limits upon the creator, not the other way around. Right? So for example, in my metaphysic, which means, my overarching understanding of the way the natural, the supernatural, and all reality work together, is that the creator is on a level of omnidimensionality that is beyond our comprehension, right? And so if there's an area of free space that we could actually travel to where down is no longer down, and it's now flipped, I would have no way of knowing that exists, and I would have no way of claiming it can't exist. I simply can't, because I know that the nature of the being that created this place is sufficient to be able to have that if he so wants it. And who am I to tell him what is out there, what is over there, what is down here, and what is up there? Because just like he told Job, hey, bro, who are you to tell me what I created?
Yeah, I get your position now, AI. Thanks for going over it again. People make assumptions, especially when you talk about, say, multi-dimensions or something, like they have an idea of what that is or what that would look like. For all we know, it may be connected physically, to this place, and who knows? So I think I get what you're saying. It's not that you're making any claims or even trying to push any ideas. It's that stop living inside this paradigm like you think you know how things work. Because,
we
like
can.
AI said, physics could be completely different, and it could be a physical place.
Well,
Just
yeah. Just one second. Hold on, NECROS. There is that the Creator has given us a sound mind to understand the nature of our Earth, in so much that we can identify it as what we see it and be able to rectify it with some sort of a semblance of knowledge. Right? It's not going to be just like leaving us out there like, babes in the woods. Like he's going to give us a way to understand the nature of our Earth. At the same token, only so much to say that we can identify it as what he's made it as, not what its constituent parts are derived from, and like the length of it and all that. That's far beyond the comprehension of any human. You know what I mean? Like there's the nature of what he did and how he made the laws of our reality, and that's far beyond anyone's understanding. So we can only know what we know, right? And be able to tell people what we know based on our common experience. Is this making sense? Like, it's been my position to always have tell people about this, because I have the same sentiment,
ultimately,
Yeah.
it's about
If we
keeping an
do,
open mind, right? That's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, because every time we talk about the flat Earth, you've heard me say it. I've always said that the known territory is the horizontal plane, like as far as we know. I don't
so
say
if we
anything
do,
beyond that.
Yeah, it's simply about
Yes,
not making a
Steve.
positive claim.
if we
Yep.
do like AI said, like AI Overlord said, we will not fall at the crisis that the heliocentric model have now. So they have now to create that idea of multiverse, because they created those assumptions about the unknown world, so the cosmos and those unknown places and the edge of the universe, and if the Earth is the center or not the center. So they created many assumptions that it led them to change their theories over the time. So from gravity, attraction between masses, so to the bending of the curvature of space-time, to adding materials to the world, unknown materials like dark matter, dark energy, now to create the idea of the multiverse, because they can't stand that their background, microwave background reading got that the Earth is in the center of their known universe. So they created the idea of multiverse. So if you followed what AI Overlord said, we will not fall in that trap. You will be always in what you know. You don't assume anything about the unknown, so no one will debunk your ideas because they are not founded. You don't have anything to defend them. So you will create something, a new explanation, a new excuse to defend that.
Right, that's a fair point, but for the Glovers out there who didn't understand that, because some Glovers come in here and say, oh, the reason why you don't make claims is because you don't want to be debunked. It's the reason why we don't make claims about things we don't know about is because we don't know about them. That's why. Not because we just want to stop ourselves from being debunked because we're afraid of being debunked like you Globers are. It's like, dude, if I don't know about the fundamental nature of certain things, why should I make definitive claims that I do? Like, that's just stupid.
Let me highlight an example. So we all see the effect of what everybody understands, what the word gravity, when somebody says that, right? We see the effect. Everybody sees that. You can drop something in the medium of air, it falls to the ground. We all see that. How does that law function in a perspective of understanding the causal nature of that? That's unknown, right? You would say that like I would. It's unknown. So if that's true, then everything AI said is also true, because then the creator made something that nobody can know how it operates, to then therefore say that it can't operate in a specific way by putting water on a ball. Do you get what I mean now? But yeah, there's this idea of a causal mechanism trying to be defined by our common experience, and then, fumbling around like, 3-year-old kids that are trying to learn about like quantum physics or something. You know what I mean? You're not going to get there.
Well, there has been examples of flat earthers who had this philosophy, which is falsification of somebody's idea doesn't mean you have to replace their idea. Falsification is independent of having an alternative idea, right? You can just falsify somebody's claim. It's perfectly fine. And so they went from that sentiment to this sentiment, which is, I feel obligated to give people answers for the answers and stories that the globe side had for certain phenomena. So now I have to come up with something to tell them about how gravity works, how this works, how that works. It's like, why? Why is that your responsibility now? Why is it your responsibility? Here's why. If you feel this urgent sense of responsibility to replace just so stories for someone, the odds are that you're going to replace that with another just so story rather than the truth. And that is why you should always have the humble attitude of I don't know. So for example, well, if the Earth's not a globe, then what is it? I don't know. Why make some stupid story up?
Want to hear something funny? I use I don't know at work, even when I do know the answer, so they got to go find somebody else to do it.
Excellent idea, brother. So wait a minute. Are you trying to say that I do know and I'm holding out on you?
No. I'm just saying, I always
All
say,
right.
I go like this. Oh, I don't know. Like that.
Yeah, here's my challenge. Next time someone asks you to speculate on something after you just proved their claim wrong, and they just Stick to your guns and say, I don't know. And then if they say, well, then how can you just prove my point if you don't have an alternative? You'd be like, I don't know any alternatives. I just know yours is wrong. Also, when they clip this out, because our friends over in 24/7, who watch and clip out our convos, it'll probably be titled. Feel free to share it with Neil from FED so he can get butthurt about it, and then go out and tell everyone that I'm a Glober now, because they can't even think for themselves to realize that I'm actually just putting out logical arguments that really don't actually have conclusions. Because the conclusion of all of what I just said, who can tell me the conclusion of all of what I just said? Anybody? 3 words. 3 simple, humble words.
I'll wait till somebody else says it.
I don't know.
I don't know. There you go.
No, not this point.
Let me see if I can give and you gave a great analogy. You gave a great explanation. But for anybody that's listening that still doesn't understand it, if they're a Glober, like, oh no, you got to have a replacement. No, if I tell you to hand me a red crayon and you hand me a blue one, and I say that one's not red, and then you're like, well, that's the only one I have. What else could it be? I don't know.
Yeah, you don't give them you don't say, oh, that you're right. That one's not red. Here's a purple crayon, but it's red. Right? I mean, why would you do that?
Because you don't want to hurt their feelings and you want to help them understand what you're saying. So you'll admit that the purple crayon is actually red.
Well, there's another sentiment from a famous flat earther that they're happy that all the stories have been taken away about reality, because now it's an age of wonder and new surprises on the horizons, so to speak. There'll be new discoveries. There'll be new things to learn. You won't have to hear about endless drivel about, stupid space stories about something happening a trillion miles away that nobody cares about and it's never going to affect their life in any way, shape, or form. But they can actually focus on the wonder of what's here, what we actually have available to us.
Yeah, it's just they stick on the title. The title says it all, even what you have to follow, which is flat Earth. We are talking about the surface. We are not claiming any shape. It means that we are agnostic about what is over the known Earth surface to us. So you stick to that. You don't talk about the sky. You don't know what is the sky. What are those stars? Who are those stars? You don't even know what are those things.
Yeah, I like how you said that. Who are the stars?
Yeah, who are the stars?
Yeah, you don't even know. You don't even know whether the stars are sentient entities or not.
I know. Can you debunk the claim that Apollo is the sun, is a guy on the chariot and something like that, and have superpowers, and can appear like that to you? Oh, do you? Can you? No, you can't, because you never verified what the sun is.
Hey, you know what's interesting, bro? Here's what's interesting. A lot of people in the world, in fact, the majority of people in the world adhere to the great religions of the world in the billions. And in their scriptures, it says things, and in their traditions, it says things about the nature of the cosmos. Some of them, it says that the realm of earth is given to man, but the realm of the heavens is for God. So there's already a separation there. And then it says in other places that the stars were disobedient Well, how could they be disobedient if they don't have sentient agency? And then in other places it says that the stars will fall to the earth. Well, how could that happen? And et cetera, it goes on and on. But they claim that this is the scripture from the creator of the world they live in. But then when a quote unquote scientist comes along and says, no, a star is not a sentient agent, it's actually just a burning ball of gas, they just lap it up like it's the gospel truth without even thinking twice because some scientist mook in a lab coat said so.
Yeah, I lived that, and I talked about that with the Muslims because in their scriptures it say the same thing, that the stars are like that. They will fall to the earth and some kind of things like that. But they don't follow the scripture, but they follow what they are told from the so-called scientists, not scientists in
Yeah.
reality.
How could they? Yeah. How could they fall to the earth if they're billions of light years away?
And bigger than the earth, and would incinerate the earth as soon as they landed on the ground.
Yeah, Beetlejuice is like what, a million gajillion times bigger than our sun. So crazy.
Wait, did you say Beetlejuice?
Yep, Beetlejuice.
Why Canis Majoris is 1.8 quintillion times bigger than the sun.
There you go.
Oh yeah. So a lot of people will never touch Canis Majoris. And of course, they'll never touch Labia Majoris either.
Yeah, and you don't know if it is the thing that you just know the name, its name, what it is, and if it is those dimensions that they are telling us, or if it is just an inanimated matter, not a sentient, like you said earlier. Yeah, you don't know. No one knows. You can't know.
If you want to see smoke come out of their ears, tell them that they don't know that the light on the moon is actually reflected sunlight. Like they can't know that. What you'll see, they'll be spinning around. What do you mean it's not reflected sunlight?
You don't know that.
Yeah, prove it.
Or like an ambulance light. You know that ambulance light with that cover that spin inside the lamp, and that light will spin over and over. If you make that ambulance lamp like spherical, like the moon, and the same mechanism inside, you will have moon phases.
Well, they were actually telling me too. They were like, well, so you're saying that it has its own light? I'm like, no, I didn't say that either.
Yeah,
Never said that. I'm just saying you need to prove how you know it's sunlight being reflected on the moon.
Crazy times, crazy times.